Welcome back to another episode of Heebie-Jeebies TV, everyone. Now, today's episode is going to be another true crime story, and this one has been unsolved for quite a while now. So today's case is about a woman named Patti Adkins who quite literally vanished without a trace, and all signs seem to point to one very specific person, but to this day, there has been absolutely no arrests made, and it has left a lot of people quite speechless just because of how obvious it is. So, Patricia Adkins, or better known as Patti to her friends and family, was described as being a very vivacious woman. She was super friendly. She had a lot of friends. People just genuinely enjoyed being around her. She was born on May 4th, 1972 in a small town called Maryville in Ohio. Now, I was not able to find a lot of information about her upbringing, but I did come across a few comments from her friends and family members that described her as being an upbeat, positive, friendly person. So as she got older in her early 20s, she actually went on to marry her husband, her first husband, and together they ended up having a daughter. But unfortunately, their marriage just didn't last, and they actually ended up getting divorced a few years before she disappeared. Now, during this time, while she was single, she was still living in Marysville, Ohio, and she had actually secured a job at a Honda factory. And she had been working there for the last 10 years or so. I believe she got the job when she was around 19, 20 years old. And she had been there for quite a long time. She was working her way up the ladder and was even up for a promotion. So 2001 comes around, and at this point, she is now 29 years old. She's single, she's ready to mingle, I guess you could say, and she actually started dating a colleague of hers from the Honda factory. Now, I'll put up a picture here, and you can see Patti was a very beautiful woman. She was tall, blonde, she was young, and it seemed like she could have basically chosen from many suitors. So it's not really known why or understood why she decided to have a relationship with this particular guy. Now, you see the problem here is that the guy she was head over heels for was actually married, and Patti was actually the other woman. She was his mistress, and they had been seeing each other on and off for a few years up until 2001 when she disappeared. Initially, when this case came out and several years after, Patti's boyfriend actually went unidentified. It was very tough to find out who he actually was, but thanks to some web sleuths or other reports out there, we're able to now know what his name was, and his name is Brian Flowers. So throughout the relationship, Brian and Patti, like I said, they were very on and off, and Brian kept, I guess, teasing her or playing her a little bit, telling her that he was gonna leave his wife and that he really loved Patti, he wanted to be with her. But throughout their relationship, he kept asking her for money. And it wasn't just a little bit of money. It wasn't like $20 here, $50 there. It was a substantial amount of money. It was actually reported, I've seen a few reports, but the number varies between $90,000 and $100,000. Now, Patti actually spent quite a bit of her savings on Brian. She took out a second mortgage on her home. She even took money out of her retirement plan, all this just to give to Brian. So I'm sure a lot of you are asking, well, why would she just give him all this money? That's a significant amount. Like, not just anyone can give someone $100,000. And this was because Brian kept telling her that in order for him to leave his wife, he had to buy her out of their mutual business that they owned together. So she owned a certain percentage of that business, and if Brian were to leave her, he wanted to keep the business to himself, so he had to buy her out. Now, a part of his ploy with Patti was to tell her that he just didn't have enough money to pay for the divorce and to pay to buy out his wife at that time. And so he told her that he needed the money basically to pay for those shares, and then that he would eventually start repaying Patti back. And it's actually said that Patti had asked for him to start repaying back the money, not in big chunks, but like even to just start repaying her in small payments a month before she actually vanished. So June 2001 comes around, and at the end of the month, early July, the Honda company where they actually worked shuts down for 1 week over the 4th of July weekend to give their employees a well-deserved break. A lot of them go on vacation at this time. And it was during this time that Brian had actually organized a romantic getaway mini vacation for him and Patti. He had told her that it was going to be just the two of them, and he actually gave her a very strange set of instructions to follow that even Patti found to be a little weird, and so did her friends and family. So Patti had gone on to tell her friends and family that she was going to go on this trip, and Brian had actually made a request and told her not to pack anything at all. He literally told her to just bring herself and that he would take care of everything else. He was going to buy all of their supplies, any additional clothes they needed, any food. Basically told her just to come on your own by yourself. Don't bring anything. I got it. He even actually told her to not expect to be able to call home because where they were going was going to be very remote, and she probably wouldn't be able to depend on a solid Wi-Fi connection. So Patti, being super excited that she gets to go on a romantic vacation with her secret boyfriend, she actually went out of her way and bought a cute little blue lingerie set. It was actually teal, and that was apparently Brian's favorite color. So she packed this into a small bag and brought this with her on the trip. So prior to actually going on the trip, Patti made arrangements to have her sister and her ex-husband co-babysit their daughter while she was gone. And she actually put her pets in a kennel. And she actually told everyone that she would be back on July 8th to pick up the pets and her daughter. So on June 29th, this was the last day that all the employees were going to be working at the Honda factory. So knowing that she was going to head off on her trip with Brian right after their last shift, she didn't drive herself to work that day. She actually got a ride with a coworker. So she gets to work, and at 3 p.m. she clocks in. Everything's normal at work. She does her normal shift, and then at midnight, she clocks out and heads over to the parking lot where she was supposed to meet with Brian. But this is where Brian had another weird request for her. And I know if someone told me to do this, I would be very spooked. You at some point you have to have a little bit more respect for yourself if someone is telling you to jump through these many hoops. But anyhow, Brian had told her that she had to hide inside of his pickup truck and hide under the mattress or like a bed, a cover that was in the back of the pickup truck. She was told to hide in there because Brian actually had to give a buddy of his from work a ride home. They lived in the same general area, so he didn't want him to see Patti. So he had made one odd request for her to hide while he dropped off his friend at home. And that was the last time anyone saw Patti. The last time anyone saw her, she was in that parking lot. And on July 8th, when she didn't come back to pick up her daughter, her sister alerted the authorities that she was missing. So obviously police start investigating everything they can about Patti. They first go to her home where they actually find that her home was in pretty good condition. There was nothing undisturbed. So they were able to rule out any sort of robbery or break and entry. And on the contrary, they actually ended up finding out lots and lots of money bundles hidden across the home. And this kind of goes into detail a little bit later, but because she had so much cash lying around, this explains why police were not able to trace the money that she had given Brian, because she had basically given him everything in cash. So next they check her bank accounts to see if there's any activity, if they can find her or trace her that way. But her bank accounts were not used after that day, and they were monitored for some time after that, and there was just absolutely no activity on them whatsoever. So then on July 10th, this is now 2 days later after she's reported as missing, the police go and interview Brian. And his story was the complete opposite. He said that he barely knew Patti at all. He had seen her at work. He knew who she was, but they barely interacted. they definitely didn't have any sort of relationship together, there was no secret affair, and that they definitely were not planning on going on a romantic trip together. So his story could not have been the could not have been more opposite of what she had told her friends and her family. But police were not satisfied with this response, so on July 13th, they actually decided to search his home. Here, they actually found a t-shirt and a phone that were gifted to Brian from Patti, and the reason they know this is because Patti's sister was able to confirm that these were gifts Patti had given to him because she had seen them, she had talked to her sister about them, she had even helped her decide what to get him. One of the most damning pieces of evidence was a gift card, or not a gift card, but more of like a birthday card that was given to Brian that had a little love note written in it from Patti. And when police questioned him about it, he said that it was just a company birthday card and that it wasn't just from Patti. But when police were looking at it, it didn't really make any sense because she was the only one that had signed this card. So it was very, very difficult for police to believe Brian at this point. So keeping in mind how suspicious Brian was looking, police decided to dig a little bit further, and they actually brought in some search dogs to his home, and they brought them around to the backyard where the dogs made an alert near a concrete slab that looked to have been newly poured in. So taking this into account, the police dig it up, but it wasn't right away. It took a little bit of time for them to dig it up, but unfortunately that didn't result in anything. They didn't find anything there. One of the more interesting pieces of evidence, though, was Brian's pickup truck. So he had bought a brand new cover for his pickup truck on June 26th, and police were able to confirm this with the receipt that he still had. And on this new cover, they actually found a small drop of blood and several animal hairs. Now, they sent the animal hairs to be tested at a lab, and they came back as belonging to a cat. And knowing that Patti actually did have a cat, they decided to get these hairs tested by her vet. And surprisingly, it actually came back as being a match to Patti's cat. Now, for the blood sample, it was said to have been a very, very small amount of blood, so small that at the time they could not really test it without risking the chance of destroying the entire sample. So police just decided to not test it and just wait for better technology to come around before actually taking that chance. Now, I'm sure a lot of you are asking, well, what about the person that Brian was supposed to drive home that night? Wouldn't they have seen something? Did anyone interrogate them? So it's said that Brian and his co-worker lived in an area called Canton, which was approximately 35 minutes away from the factory. And that night, to get back to Brian's house, it actually took them 2.5 hours. Now, when police asked him about this, he had a weird explanation. He said that him and his friend got hungry after their shift, so they decided to stop at a Burger King on their way home. And surprisingly, at this time, keep in mind, this would have been like around 12:45, 1 a.m., they actually stopped at a Burger King and said that the driveway or the drive-through lineup was extremely long, and they ended up waiting 45 minutes in that line to get their food. So police found that extremely suspicious. I know I find that extremely suspicious, especially for that time of night. And the manager that was on duty then actually said that that was not true, that he did not see it that way at all. He did not remember that night being that insanely busy, especially considering that it was around 1 o'clock in the morning. So this is not making a lot of sense to police. Even if he did wait 45 minutes in line and then another 35 minutes to drive home, it still doesn't amount to the 2.5 hours that it took him to get from work to home that night. So at approximately 2:30 a.m., Brian's wife actually said that he returned home and that everything seemed completely normal. And this is how police were able to determine how long the journey took from him to leave work and to finally get home, and to discover that there was unaccounted time. And to this day, there's no idea what happened, what actually happened during those 2.5 hours. So police obviously then go on to the next person and they start questioning his wife, asking him if she knew about this affair or what she knew at all. And she denied everything. She said that she had no idea, that there was definitely no affair, that there was nothing suspicious going on. And she even went on to say that Brian had spent the entire vacation week at home. So there was definitely no chance of him having gone away on a romantic vacation with his alleged mistress. So then Brian decides to take a lie detector test, which he actually failed miserably, from what I understand. And because of this, he actually had to end up quitting his job at the Honda factory because there was just too many people gossiping. There was just too much negative attention surrounding him, which actually drove him to leave his job. Now, from here on out, police have absolutely no idea where Patti's body is, what happened to her. They have literally no leads. Everything is very cold, even though they basically have a very good idea of who did this and why, but there's just no solid evidence linking them to this case. And they still have no idea where her body is. And in 2006, she was actually legally declared as deceased. Now, I'm sure there's a lot of theories. A lot of you are probably wondering what happened, who could have been involved. And there's a lot of people that seem to think Brian's wife was involved, that she was just his cover up, and that she kind of played along with this in order to extort an enormous amount of money from Patti. And so she lied for him when questioned about it. But when she was being interrogated, she seemed to be very, very adamant that she had no idea that this could have even been a possibility. To her, Brian was so busy with work, he was busy at home, he was busy with their business that they owned together, that she just did not believe that he had time to have a mistress on the side, basically. Now, I know a lot of you are probably wondering, well, what about this person that drove home with him? Like, did they ask him? And I actually could not find information on interviews with the co-worker. I don't know if they actually questioned him or not, but a lot of people seem to think that this person could have been in on it because he was with them for the whole 2.5 hours. So there's a lot of room for speculation there. And then other people think, regardless of who was involved, they think that she could have likely originally been buried at Brian's home, since the dogs did alert at the concrete slab area in the backyard. But because they did not dig that area up right away, there was an opportunity for her body to have been moved if it was there. So a lot of people seem to think that she was originally hidden there and then moved at a later date. But other than that, this case has been very, very cold. There's been no new developments. Even the blood sample that they were saving for new technology has not been tested yet, from what I understand, which is I find to be very, very odd, considering that this is now possible 20 years later. But let me know what you guys think in the comments. Who do you think did it? Who do you think might have helped him do it? Or do you think he had help doing it? Do you guys have any other theories? Let me know in the comments below. I would love to hear your opinions on this, especially if you have any other information that I was not able to come across. Let me know in the comments below, and I will see you guys in the next video.